College Football Enquirer with Steven Godfrey and Ross Dellenger. I am Andy Staples. And Godfrey, you and I were going at it over the text machine on Saturday night during the Oregon-James Madison game. And I figure we should just bring the audience right into this. Ross was just laughing. He was at home. He'd had to travel day from hell. We were entertaining him. But
yeah,
the reason we were doing this is because we weren't engrossed in a football game because James Madison and Oregon were playing, and it was not competitive at all. And
when you and I were texting, I wasn't even watching. I was in a different room. That's.
I mean, James Madison started scoring a little bit at the end, but it didn't matter.
I want to point out that James Madison scored more points against Oregon than all but two teams this year.
That's true. How many were against Oregon starters?
That's why I didn't text you that last night, because I was watching it and I was like, that's a 2, that's a 2, that might be a 3. It's funny because Andy and I, like, I've known Andy long enough, and like we have to qualify these things in 2025. We were batting around opposite sides of a subject. We were not yelling at each other. I think we're in agreement ultimately on what needs to change in the college football playoff. I think the only thing that I was actually legitimately mad about yesterday was the idea that who the responsible party is.
Right. You do not want to blame James Madison, which I don't blame James Madison. I don't blame Tulane. I don't blame anybody who did the best they could and put the team on the field and played the game. That they're doing what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, it's that opening drive for JMU. I was like, oh, okay, here we go. Got quarterbacks throwing blocks on pitches. I always want to see what happens
after the script.
Yeah. No, believe me. And then once they could only get a field goal after all those fourth down conversions, I was like, okay, it's going to be a total massacre, but I really like the first 15 plays.
After the blocked field goal, it was kind of like that was pretty deflating.
The blocked field goal, they had the trick play to get them down there, and you're like, okay, wait, this might be something, and then they don't score, and it's like, nope.
They needed to score on the trick play. Yeah,
it wasn't something. From a football perspective, if we look through the 4 games that were played, we could probably do the football part of this in advance of not a preview of the next round. I probably think the headline is the health of Quan Lacey at Ole Miss. That's probably the headline going into the next round of the playoffs. It was the second time he left the game in like far beyond kind of the blowout point against Tulane, that it looked like he was really, really bothered by amateur, med school grad here. Looked like an AC joint kind of shoulder situation that really, really bothered him when he went to the ground after coming back from what looked like the initial injury right before halftime.
Yep. And then so you've got that part. You don't want to have that happening while you're playing Georgia.
That is very significant going against Georgia, and everything is run game oriented here, guys. With the exception of Alabama somehow winning a game without a run game, run game as we move forward in this playoff. That's what I'm looking for.
Well, and it's interesting because I was in College Station and we were asking Miami offensive coordinator Shannon Dawson, "Hey, how come you didn't just run duo the whole game?"
Yeah,
because that's what you were killing him on at the end, and he actually had a really good reason for that. He said, you guys, and he was talking to the local Miami media that covered them all season. He's like, you guys crushed me during the season because we were trying to do that in the middle of the season and we were not having a lot of success. The reason it worked today is because we were doing some things where we were trying to get Malachi Toney the ball. We were trying to force A&M to the sidelines. Force them to defend the sidelines, force them to think about defending the sidelines. And then once they did that, then we run duo with Mark Fletcher Jr. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. And it's funny because if you look at that last A&M drive, the only touchdown drive of the game for either team, it's Mark Fletcher, and then they pop them with Malachi Toney coming around the edge. And then by that point, A&M was bunched in the middle. Malachi Toney scores, and I'm like screaming, "Wait, go down!"
Yeah.
And I was disabused of that notion by multiple coaches, and they're like, no. In a game like that, when nobody can make a field goal, just score a touchdown.
Yeah, just score. Yeah, I mean the wind was crazy, right? Like I mean that would have risked.
That's why you couldn't fly in.
Yeah, that's why. Well, I don't know why the hell I couldn't fly in exactly, but apparently the air traffic around College Station was nuts in it was so crazy that private planes were like circling Louisiana to wait to get in to land at College Station. So I don't know if that was part of reason or what, but yeah, I was stuck in the Dallas airport for 7
behind
hours.
The curtain,
so it was fun.
Ross and I were both in Norman for the Alabama-Oklahoma game, and my On3 podcast partner, Ari Wasserman, and I were driving from Norman to College Station. Ross was taking a flight from OKC through DFW to College Station. So Ari and I drove to Ardmore, Oklahoma after the game. That's on your list, Godfrey. I know you've already got
on there.
Ardmore.
He's already there.
Round 2 of Ardmore this season.
So
2026 live show. We're going to Ardmore.
I'll timestamp this. So game ends, do a live hit, do interviews with Alabama people after the game, drive to Ardmore, get to Ardmore about 12:45-ish, 1-ish, finish a column, head hits the pillow at 2:02 a.m., alarm goes off at 4:35 a.m., back on the road.
Yeah.
And so
we almost had identical timestamps, as far as when I got to my hotel and I got to sleep when I got up. Yeah.
We are between West Texas and Waco. So we've been driving for a solid 2.5 hours at this point. Ari is passed out in the passenger seat, and Ross calls me, and he's like, "How close are you to DFW?" I was like, "Not close at all." Because otherwise,
at least an hour past, right? Hour and a half past, probably DFW. Yeah, it was. One delay would have put me. I was supposed to land in College Station at 9:30, right? An hour and a half before the game. And one delay would have put me landing about 30 minutes before the game. And a second delay would have put me landing at halftime. And then after the third delay, I decided to just book a flight back home to D.C. because the third delay would have put me there in the middle of the fourth quarter. Then there was a fourth delay, which would have put me there. I think my plane ended up landing right around the time that baby Jesus got into the end zone.
Perfect.
Judging by your
just
text
shown up
message,
for the
it was
post game
5 minutes after the game ended.
Yeah.
Could have just walked in and gone to the post game.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I know. Yeah.
So
anywho.
But it was very exciting for those first two games, that flawed though they were.
Yeah.
Alabama, Oklahoma, and Texas A&M, Miami were really competitive games. They were both more competitive than any of the first round games last year. So you got that as an improvement over last year. But we do need to figure out, because there's two things at play here in why there were two utterly non-competitive games on a channel you're not used to watching college football on. And this is the thing. I don't know about you guys. I was explaining something to my wife. She asked me a college football playoff question, and she doesn't care about any of this stuff. But something piqued her interest, and so she asked me a question the other day, and I started to answer it, and I go, "This is what I hate." And she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bother you." I'm like, "No, not you." I said, "This is what I hate. They make the sport so hard to explain to someone who might want to learn about it."
Yes.
Yeah. The format in general,
About twice a year, I have conversations with the British about college football, and nope.
No,
I apparently am not as adept a communicator as I thought. It's just impossible to describe.
Yeah. We make it hard, don't we?
Yeah. And so in this situation, I get why those two games were in the time slots they were in. I get why A&M Miami was at noon, because they didn't want to go up against the NFL. And if you watch the end of the Bears-Packers game, you understand the NFL put a better product on the field in prime time. So you get it. But
I'll be curious to see the ratings of the NFL games, the afternoon, evening, and the afternoon, evening college game versus A&M Miami. At 11 a.m. local time. It'll be fascinating to kind of just compare all those and see how they.
I'm genuinely curious what number on ABC that Montana State drew.
Yes. Yeah,
right,
for sure.
Because there is a bump you get, by the way, from being on a broadcast network.
Oh, yeah.
Just because actually there's been a shift back. It's not rabbit ears. It's a USB thing now. But there's been a shift back to broadcast. So it's a legitimate question. And also, this is and Ross, you can probably answer this better. In the next college football playoff contract, because the current one, it's on ESPN for a reason. They want subscribers. They want a reason to make people subscribe to ESPN, to make people buy the cable bundle back when they did the first deal. This is not that. They're not there anymore. Are they going to put these things on ABC
going forward?
going forward. Yeah, because the deal ends after this year.
I don't know. That's a good question. I guess maybe. I mean, I didn't even think about this. Sorry, you stumped me, Andy.
Oh, good. Well, I have you can ask the commissioners this because the business model has changed considerably since they did the first deal. They're still they've done the second deal, but they're still not fixed on format yet. So theoretically, the second deal can be tweaked. Now it's still going to be with Disney, which I'm going to argue here with you guys, and you guys may not be arguing with me. That might be the problem. The biggest problem might be that they sold this thing to one entity because if they had parceled out the playoff like the NFL does to multiple networks, then those networks would be working together to get the best product at the best possible time that the most possible people could watch. And in this case, you're not doing that because now you have to fight the NFL. If you had playoff games on Fox and playoff games on NBC and playoff games on ESPN, you wouldn't have to fight the NFL because all of those networks, which also broadcast the NFL, would be trying to figure out a way to maximize everything instead of
that's
just trying to dump on Disney.
Yeah, well, that's probably why, Andy, that ESPN was, from what I understand, the only legitimate bidder in the process. Nobody was within our, ESPN's number was $1.3 billion they're paying for the playoff annually. I think I heard the closest number was around half of that. That's what I've been told by multiple people.
That's to buy the whole thing. Stop selling the whole thing.
Parse it out, kind of like the Big Ten did, right, with the TV deal. I mean, there's a legitimate argument for that. It does. I could see that. And really what ended up happening is ESPN parsed it out themselves, right? Which we talked about last week.
Or to
I had a column about that. Yeah, about the TNT sub-licensing situation. And look, I mean, even the Big Ten who parsed theirs out, one of their networks that they did that with, NBC, is trying to sub-license. It's sub-license, right? It's trying to sub-license the Big Ten championship game to like an Amazon.
Yeah. So I think that's one thing they've got to figure out. And we've talked about different weekends. We talked about it. I don't think you do that. I think you just try to have the best games you can, and having two dog games, which they knew were going to be dog games going in, doesn't help. And to Godfrey's point, this is what Godfrey and I were arguing about. And I know Godfrey knows this. I don't blame James Madison for this. I blame the system for this. But I also am going to be a little harsh here and not going to be Mr. I love all college football in this. It's an entertainment product. Your job is to put an entertainment product on my television. You should just have the best teams.
I don't disagree. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I don't think James Madison should be in the playoff from a competition standpoint. I have to jump in and this is where the argument gets sort of nuanced on our end, because we're talking about the business concerns and why it's written up this way, why conferences have probably too much influence on the structure and the television thing. All of that kind of gets reduced down to its dumbest point, which is that the damn G5 doesn't need to be in this playoff. I think we're all in agreement. If the ACC had not soiled itself, they would have found a way to put Miami into the conference championship game. Miami almost certainly would have won that conference championship game. That would have put the easiest way to sort of alternate universe this is that Notre Dame would have gone to Oxford and played a much more interesting game. Ole Miss, by the way, it was a rematch with Tulane. Same stadium, 3 months later, same result.
Same game, essentially.
Yeah. So, I mean, on top of the G5 part that people are yelling about, like it wasn't even an intriguing matchup. And then
like
instead of
JMU, Georgia in a rematch in the Sugar Bowl, but I want to see that game again because I was entertained the first time.
That was a close come from behind win. That was I mean, one of the most important games of the season. You would have sent Tulane to Eugene, and you would have had essentially that G5 reward for the 5 seed, which is something that I think most people would be okay with. Unfortunately, this gets reduced down to just a litany of stupid talking points from the usual like helmet nerds and just anti-G5 folks. We have to maintain a little nuance in this argument. The product, however, and this is where Andy and I disagreed. You were in College Station and you watched it live.
Yeah.
And I was watching on television, and it was terrible. It was awful. It was. I said this on one of the social platforms. This was an episode of Jackass where I didn't laugh. It was a bad and dumb football product. And I was at LSU 9-6, and I remember thinking, oh my God, this thing is so stressful. It's so intense. And then I would talk to people who watched it, and they were like, that was awful. So we talk about good TV
so
products.
Pitchers' duels don't translate on television, is what you're saying.
God, no. And I don't doubt, dude, I do not doubt at all in a stadium like that.
It felt like everybody was puckered up for 3.5 hours.
Yeah. Well, I remember that was the 9-6 thing, right? Like every little play you were hanging on because the score was so tight and nobody could do anything. It was like any movement, even like a 6-yard gain was gasp. Wow, amazing.
Yeah.
I watched on TV in the Dallas airport, as I mentioned earlier. I mean, I was entertained, but I could see where the TV audience, which we've proven over and over again, loves points in offensive football, would be less thrilled than if you're watching at the stadium or a few beers in an airport bar.
The other issue here is sort of, again, where we have to understand the nuance is that if you're a helmet nerd and you just want your helmet, I need my helmets, then we can't really have a conversation here. You just want the power programs to have a tournament. That's not what this was designed for. This was designed as an invitational tournament by a lot of competing corporate interests and conferences and bowls who needed to have their certain position. Because if we had the best, we wouldn't have conference champions. We would have something that's very, very different. The system, as it was designed by the people in power, did exactly what the system was designed to do. Now, they will revise that in the offseason, but we cannot blame James Madison. We cannot blame Tulane. And I do believe in 12 teams that a group of 5 representatives should take one spot. JMU did not need to be in the playoff, and Notre Dame did.
I think maybe they should be ranked in the top 12. I think you should have to get up there. That Boise State team last year would have been the 9 seed, would have been fine in an 8-9 game. That Boise State team against this Oklahoma team, which would have been the 8-9, this Oklahoma team is the 8 seed. That's a game. That's a game on watch. Issues,
Andy, here's one of the issues that's sort of popped up. I mean, obviously they've given the group of 5 a path to the playoff. Let's just be honest, for political reasons, right? I think some of them have even said that.
Please don't sue us. Yes.
It's a political sort of reason.
Ross, it was on the broadcast. It was on the Tulane Ole Miss broadcast.
Yeah. I mean, that's just what it is. Now, here's one of the issues is that there's a couple issues right now with the format. One is you are giving the 5 seed each year who will play the 12 seed, likely the G5 program. You're sort of giving them not just a home game, but you're sort of giving them sort of a pass, like a 1 versus 16 seed in basketball. When you're not giving that to the 1 seed, not a home playoff game or not a pass. So that's what's got to change.
And this is why I argue that Oregon is in the position that it was hurt by last year. Because
and they're in an advantageous position this year.
Oregon got the 1 seed, had the best regular season of anybody, earned the right to whatever. What they earned was a right to get rusty and to get buzzsawed by Ohio State in the Rose Bowl because Ohio State had a chance to warm up against Tennessee. Oregon's that team this year. I feel bad for Texas Tech now because Oregon got a warm up, got to play their 2s, and now they're going to go into the Orange Bowl completely, finally lubricated. Maybe Evan Stewart's going to be back playing. They are going to be as ready can be. And if you're Texas Tech, that is a detriment. And you are the higher seeded team.
Yeah.
My issue is the blowout conversation. The blowout is used as a cudgel and then completely ignored. If you want your helmets and you're happy with your helmets, you don't care about a blowout. Because if you cared about a blowout, the Rose Bowl was the most boring game of the tournament last year. Okay, flat out. but everyone cared about the helmets. It's by the way, it's really funny is like there are specific media members and accounts and pundits who 15 years ago would have talked about, maybe 20 now, Oregon not belonging. I find that funny. The blowouts matter when you want them to matter. Last year, Ohio State, Tennessee was not competitive. Texas was up handily on Clemson going into the fourth quarter last year. SMU disappeared. So if you're mad about blowouts, I need you to know out there in America, you will never avoid a blowout in a 12-team tournament.
No, it's not blowouts I'm mad about. Like, there are blowouts in the NFL. It happens. The game gets away sometimes. But here's the problem. And this is what we talked about on my On 3 show last night. How many NFL players are on Oregon's roster? Is it 40? How many NFL players are on James Madison's roster? And this is not basketball. And I think people, we're so used to the NCAA tournament, and we want this to be like that, and we want upsets like that. Because honestly, one of these upsets would make this the most popular sporting event in the world. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, not just the situation before where the teams in the power conferences were always more talented. Mm-hmm. The situation now in this era, where the second you get a good player in the G5, a power conference team takes him.
Yeah.
Like James Madison, if this were 10 years ago, James Madison might have been very competitive in that game. And you know why?
Yeah.
Because Elijah Surratt, D'Angelo Pons, I can go down the list. All
roster.
Of Indiana's good players would still be playing for James Madison.
Okay, this is totally accurate, but this is not. We're getting away from the argument here that I think we should have, or at least it's not an argument.
No.
It's just the
this is the argument I want to have, because I want. If you don't have a bunch of NFL players, I don't want to see you playing against a team with a bunch of NFL players, because I know what's going to happen.
That's fine. We set this system. There's this narrative this morning and last night that the Sun Belt kicked the door in and sieged the castle gates. This playoff was designed by the people in charge. Yes,
the ACC did it in a conference room in Amelia Island, Florida, when they did their tiebreakers.
Why did James Madison make the playoff? Because the ACC is an 18-team disaster. An abomination, and they became an abomination because they had to survive the Super League era. Because for some reason, for the good of the student athlete and the good of the sport, we put UCLA and USC in the Big Ten. And for the good of the student athlete and the good of the sport, Red River came east to the SEC for the good of the sport and tradition. So the ACC and the Big 12, in order to survive, had to glom up. We tore apart the Pac-12 like a live execution. Nobody on a network mentions that ever anymore because the television providers cheered it on. We both know that television providers egged on Red River going to the SEC and Los Angeles going to the Big Ten. Okay? So the ACC now has the Bay Area and SMU and all this crap, and they don't know we can't have divisions anymore because there'd be 25 teams in a division. They screwed up their product as a stakeholder in this process, and the rules that they created along with the power leagues, the Sun Belt didn't create this. The MAC didn't create this.
The MAC and the Sun Belt are the best geographic conferences out there. They make the most sense.
They literally did nothing and said, hey, guys, please, God, we would just like a seat at the table. And then when the malfeasance, and this is so hard for me not to swear, the craven greed of these conferences barfed up this result, we turned around and blamed JMU. It is the ACC's fault this year. Full stop.
Who cares whose fault it is? And this is the problem. By the way, this is the problem.
I do. I really do care whose fault it is because we're shooting someone we shouldn't.
Because they sucked. Don't care. They don't care why it happened. I get so frustrated with this. The only thing people want is good games on their TV. That's it. We argue about this, and our audience cares about this because our audience is deeply invested, and our audience, a lot of them work in college football.
Yeah.
The people you're trying to reach,
some of them tell the truth.
Trying to reach, the people we make fun of as casuals, the people who will make us more money if we do this right.
Right.
Don't give a crap. They just want good games on their TV. That's
I agree,
it.
Andy. I agree.
So-
Then here's the deal. Tell the conferences to F off. Tell the Rose Bowl to F off.
Yes.
Tell every traditional stakeholder to F off.
Yes.
And say it's the best 12 or 16.
Yes. Let's go.
But do not sit here and blame these schools who are barely trying to field a football team and stay relevant that it's their fault. It's not. And by the way, there's a reason why they're doing this for legality. Ross knows. There's a little weird thing in this. It's called antitrust. By the way, we're all skirting labor law here too.
And they're trying to get help from Congress, right? So they're not going to rattle congressional lawmakers. And
what a shock that you waited on D.C. to help you and it didn't come.
Yeah. Also, close games, right? I mean, even in we've had multiple examples of even when you have two big brands, you may not get a close game, even in the semifinals or championship of a college football playoff. Hey, let me give you all some scores. Okay. 34-11, Georgia over Michigan, 2021. 31-14, Alabama over Notre Dame. 63-28, LSU over Oklahoma. 30-3, Clemson over Notre Dame. 31-0, Clemson over Ohio State. 24-7, Alabama over Washington. 38-0, Alabama over Michigan State. These are all college football playoff
I covered those
semifinal games.
I was at that Goose Egg Fiesta Bowl for Ohio State, and I remember talking to my bosses at the time about our travel budget and being like, "Well, this was a waste. This was a waste." The idea that you're never going to skirt a blowout. This is going to continue to happen. So I think we're kind of getting in circles here because I think we all agree.
Well, I'm with you though.
James
Godfrey,
Madison shouldn't have been in there. That felt bad.
I'd say best 12 or best 16, regardless of conference championships, because conference affiliations don't mean anything anymore. They don't. And Ross, all the people you talk to,
you're on the Greg Sankey kill list now.
Yeah, they'll never agree. It's funny though because all the SEC coaches agree with me. All the SEC coaches are like best 12, best 16. What are we
they are.
doing
Most
here?
coaches go that direction, and so does Greg Sankey, right? He's argued for that for a while now. Top 12, top 16. Just take because of course, obviously, his league would have the advantage in that format, right? I mean, they would have the advantage. And so, but he's arguing.
Yeah. So he's not doing this from an altruistic place.
Yeah. There's two ways of thinking here, right? You go all the way to this side, which is just take the top, whatever, no rules, easy to understand. Right, plain and simple. Or you can go all the way to this side, which is what we're hearing, the proposal from the Big Ten of a 2014 that relies on the conference standings to create automatic qualifier spots, right?
Godfrey's
or there's the middle, what they're talking about, right? The middle, the compromise is 16 with some rules in some political sort of compromise to the group of five.
Give backs. Yeah. Now, Godfrey's right. The Frankenstein conferences caused this. The Frankenstein conferences they don't mean the same thing. Like winning that doesn't. No. They've moved it to a point where you're even arguing about whether you want to go play in your conference championship game. So just stop worrying about who wins the conference.
Yeah, the more time I spend with this, and God knows we do the show 3 days a week, and we all live this way more than the fans do. I'm the G5 guy and all that stuff. I'm so fine with a Super League. Get it over with, and let's redraw some of these lines. The only thing I really get angry about is the blaming of the small schools who never had the ability to they didn't force their way in, and this idea that you're going to piss on my leg and tell me it's raining. We need to just go ahead and do these things.
Okay, let's before we talk. Their little Bambi, sitting there while his mom dies. They're also taking free money from the big schools. They could go do their own playoff if they wanted to. That would be very competitive and very interesting and a fun television product.
Are we going to start talking about people
taking money from the big schools?
We're going to start talking about people taking money they don't deserve in college athletics?
Is anybody actually giving the money to those schools?
I'm not gonna start blaming JMU
first. Is ESPN we got to make sure we got the Sun Belt in here? They're not. They're taking free money from the big schools. So let's not make them completely innocent in this whole thing.
There are only guilty men in this room. But let me tell you something. If I'm looking to blame somebody for taking revenue that doesn't belong to them, I'm not going to yell at JMU first.
What did Nick Saban say on game day? He said, obviously said they should their own playoff. Just give them the money and let them go do it. Guess what? Nick, they're not going to give them the money and tell them to like get out. They're not going to give them. They're just going to tell them to get out. They're not going to give them the money. It's just hush money.
It's like, here you go, get out.
They're not. They already quote give money to them now for the access spot, which is, I think it's $115 million, something like that, goes to the group of five that they distribute. They're not going to give. They're not going to give. Newsflash, Nick, right? They're not going to give them the money and then tell them, okay, you can leave, go, do your own thing.
If they do that, though, if they do the Nick Saban plan, it has to be in an envelope and left on a dresser.
Yeah, there you go.
Nick
might give them some money, not the money they give them now, though.
Nick letting the mask slip on game day has been one of the more inadvertently entertaining things this year, because
Nick doesn't care. Like Nick doesn't think about it as I'm the representative of the machine. Like Nick's like, this is what I thought about as a coach. Like this is what I was worried about. So,
but Nick meeting reality and also not having the ability to influence people as much as he used to. He certainly can't influence people. We saw that this year, but it's just fascinating to watch the Lion in Winter. And you know, the angrier he gets on that show, the better. So it's the only entertaining thing left on the show.
Speaking of things you should watch, the Yahoo Sports Network is available on your television. Turn on your smart TV. On the home row, you'll see that Yahoo Sports Network icon. You can watch all of the Yahoo Sports Network shows, including the College Football Enquirer. Or if you are on the go, on your phone, on your tablet, on your laptop, go to yahoosports.tv and you can watch all of our shows, including the College Football Enquirer. Yeah, you can see me and Godfrey getting very, very animated. When we come back, we are going to talk a little bit more about the games that were played. I want to talk about the game in Norman that Ross and I were at, because it had some serious implications that go across the sport, but also just the Alabama of it all, I find fascinating. We'll talk about it when we come back. We're back to College Football Enquirer, and Ross Dellenger and I were in Norman, Oklahoma on Friday night watching Alabama play Oklahoma, and there's a lot of subplots and a lot of, I don't know. Ross, would you call it misinformation that floated around about Alabama and Kalen DeBoer in the previous week? I don't know if it's misinformation, wishful thinking. I don't know how to term it.
Are you talking about a certain job that's open?
Certain job is open. The Michigan job's open. We'll talk about the Michigan search in a little bit, but let's talk about it as it relates to Kalen DeBoer right now, because Kalen DeBoer says, "Hey, I'm going to be the coach at Alabama next year." Issues a statement, then says it in a press conference. In answer to two different questions, and you still had like Michael Wilbon going on the air last week going, he's coaching for his job. Like
nobody believes coaches.
Fire him if
nobody believes coaches. Probably rightfully so. Right?
Why is that? Why is
justification
that?
Alabama might fire him.
No, people were acting like that, but that's what happens, right? When you spend 17 years losing like one game a year on average. And then you lose 8, or the proposition of potential of losing 8 in 2 years,
right?
Which when they were down 17-0. Yeah. I mean, when they were down 17-0 in the middle of the second quarter, you thought, this is going to be an interesting post-game news conference. There's a very attractive job open. This is the year you're going to go 19-8. He would have been 19-8, I think, in the 2 years. And then boom, they marched down 75 yards. They pick 6, block punt. It was just, it was just about as flip of a feeling, a momentum of a game that I have ever experienced in a road environment too. That was pretty loud and rocking. It was stunning to see. And I think Kalen sort of like after the game gave a peek sort of behind what happened when he said, I thought it was a really interesting quote. I don't have it exactly, but he said, we have really good players and we all know the game's going to come back to us eventually because we have the best players, basically. Mm-hmm. I love that quote. And it's like what I always talk to people when I covered LSU football and baseball, specifically baseball. Right, LSU always had and probably still does to an extent, the best baseball roster in the country, or one, like the top 3.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Like people never understood why entering the 9th inning, despite them being down 2, 4, 5, 8 runs, there was always like this hope that they would come back, and a lot of times they did. It's because eventually the best players will win if you keep on giving the best players more opportunities. And it did feel like that when you looked at Alabama's roster and some of the things they did in the game, whether it's the block punt or the pick six or whatever, the stars, right, the best players ended up coming out. And Kalen did. He said that, the game will come back to us.
The other quote in that post-game interview session that I thought was really interesting, though, because Kalen did say that the game comes back to us, but he mentioned it in the context of he struggled to get his team to understand that. He was talking about them losing 24-3 in Norman last year, and then also what happened in the SEC championship game this year. Ryan Grubb, their offensive coordinator, said in the SEC championship, he went as close as he could go to saying he thought the team quit in the SEC championship game without actually saying it. And then he said there was an address made to the team that when you get down, it isn't over. It's never over. Chip away, chip away. And I thought that was very interesting because that's something that, the Nick Saban Alabama teams never would have even had to address. But they did, and they did look like they had bagged it in the SEC championship game. And this looked like a situation where the same thing could have happened to them.
Yeah.
And the switch flipped, and they're like, nope, we're not letting this happen again.
They still can't run the ball, but
no.
No. They're not a 30-yard run. When the Daniel Hill 30-yard run happened, I was like,
it was the longest run since week 2, I think.
Yes.
Crazy.
When you see a chunk play like that, like I understand the value statistically and analytically of an explosive play, but when you see a chunk run play after that amount of like inaction in the run game, I'm tempted to just kind of dismiss it outright. I have questions about this game, and then I think that the fastest way to explain the Alabama situation is like, it's insane that Kalen DeBoer would even contemplate having to reset his clock at this point in his Alabama tenure based on expectation and impatience, but that is the reality of Alabama. There's an entire generation of college football fan that doesn't understand that Alabama is perpetually crazy. Nick Saban ironed out that insanity. No, I'm serious. Over the course of like 20 years, Nick Saban took one of the most volatile places, whatever level you want to talk about, redneck sidewalk fan calling into Feinbaum or a guy with money who thinks that he should be running the facility. Like all of that was brought to heel by Nick Saban. I think where we differed at his retirement, where some people thought he'd change that forever, and some of us, myself, said, well, now that he's gone, you pulled the pin out of the structure. So Kalen DeBoer, Andy, I'm glad you brought this up. Kalen DeBoer's approach to and inability to stamp out emotional swings or psychological sort of like momentum issues with young players is the thing that bothers a lot of Alabama fans at their core. But this is what every other program has dealt with. This is just the reality of not having Nick Saban.
And the other part is Nick Saban knew this was coming. Nick Saban knew that he would have to deal with this if he were coaching Alabama now, because he can't have a prohibitively more talented roster.
Yeah, it's why he quit. It's why he quit. And the funny thing is like this game feels so much to me like the doubts that I've had about Kalen DeBoer relative to the Alabama standard after Florida State or after the loss last year, late in the when they got knocked out of playoff contention. I do fall into that category sometimes of doubting his ability to carry this load. And then every time they turn around and he has a game like this, it was Georgia last year where he has a game like this. It was Georgia this year as well. And if everyone can just calm the hell down in Tuscaloosa, this is among maybe the 5 best coaches and 5 best programs to survive the next era of college football, as long as Alabama can stop looking in the rearview mirror. All that being said, I don't think they're winning this tournament, not by a long shot.
I don't either. I think if they play the way they played in the second and third quarters, they can give Indiana a game. If they play the way they did in the first or fourth quarter, they will get blown out by Indiana. And
correct.
But the part that was interesting is in the second and third quarter, because Alabama was still the more talented team on the whole than Oklahoma. It's the gap is far closer than it used to be when Nick Saban coached there. But Alabama started playing like the more talented team, which sometimes they do not under Kalen DeBoer. And you're like, oh, wait, this roster's still loaded. It's not. It's not the 2012 roster, but it's still loaded.
Yeah, they reminded us of that in a variety of ways, whether it's the speed on the perimeter and some of the catches that were made, some of the big chunk plays from and Ty Simpson put the ball on the money He was impressive. He didn't look hurt, right? There was some rumblings that he was like injured. He certainly
he
didn't
had
look
a scramble
necessarily.
He had a scramble in the third quarter for a first down that kept a drive alive. I think it was on third and medium, where he's like, okay, he's fine. He's going to be all right. And that's why he didn't just get buried by Oklahoma's pass rush. And so if he can, again, if that's what we're dealing with, if that's what's going to the Rose Bowl to play Indiana, that could be a really interesting game. Now, imagine though telling somebody 5 years ago, Alabama and Indiana are going to play in a college football playoff quarterfinal in the Rose Bowl, and when the moment the matchup is set, the sports books will install Indiana as a 6.5 point favorite.
Yeah,
weird times.
I'm tempted to get into the game preview of this, and I know we're going to have a lot of time and more shows to do that. But the narrative, the weight of the consequences in the narrative build to this between the two conferences for Indiana, for the post-portal NIL culture, and the way that the roster's been, there's so much consequence around this one game, even regardless of the whole like national championship tournament that it's a part of. Just this one game is going to be so fascinating on and off the field.
Because Alabama is still this avatar for the old era.
Yeah. Oh, you nailed
even though
it.
it's not that anymore. It's not the same thing. Like the closest thing to the old era is Ohio State this year in terms of roster construction. They're the only ones that look like a Nick Saban Alabama team, the LSU team in 2019, the Clemson teams in 16 and 18, the Kirby Smart Georgia teams that won the national title back-to-back. Ohio State's the closest thing. Georgia is the second closest. Alabama's not.
No. But it's the perception and it's the monolith that was created over that time with Saban, and it is just a little bit. It's kind of a dumber conversation to have of what Alabama represents. But this feels to me similar in a lot of ways into not necessarily what will happen or what happened, but that 2014 Sugar Bowl in the first ever 4-team year, where Ohio State and Urban Meyer kind of finally took down Saban, at least temporarily, to then restore a little balance to the sport. This feels like a chapter in that story that we're setting up in Pasadena.
And 2014 is a good example of that. Like that Sugar Bowl, when you looked at that Ohio State roster and what Urban Meyer assembled, you're like, oh, somebody else can do this. It's not just Nick Saban. Like somebody else is going to be able to compete with them.
Yeah, well, they nationalized recruiting too, and I mean Ohio State. That was Zeke and
St. Louis,
half the quarterback. St. Louis. There's
Texas. JT Barrett's from Texas.
JT was from Texas. I did this one. Von Bell was from Atlanta, right? Like it's. Yep. I mean, you had Floridians on that roster. This was a major moment. And now we look, are we going to say that about, I saw percentage of starts of playoff teams by transfers. And I think Indiana, Ole Miss were number one, maybe.
Georgia.
Number one, number two.
Right.
Georgia's on the other side.
Georgia had the most by high school recruits.
Yes. So I'm really curious. Again, narrative and how we inform ourselves about the sport. If this is a lopsided result, the narrative blowback is going to be pretty big in the offseason.
Well, this is the only matchup in the quarterfinals, which is like surprising the way this has happened, between the SEC and Big Ten. Right? You have ACC, Big Ten, Miami, Ohio State. You have Big Ten, Big 12, and then SEC with Ole Miss, Georgia, Big 10, Big 12, Oregon, and Texas Tech. But if you could just for a second forget about the SEC championship game or that it existed, Alabama was the 1 seed from the SEC, and Indiana was the 1 seed from the Big Ten. So I hate to say that one game is some referendum on this Big 12 versus SEC, but you know it's in the Rose Bowl. Like it feels like the semifinal or even a national championship game between these two giant conferences.
It is the narrative national championship game, and it's one of those I always enjoy this in the basketball tournament where you could tell the people who never pay attention to the sport all season just drop in for the final. Like you can write their column before they write it.
Yeah.
And that, like, we can do that with whatever happens in this game. Like, we can write the column if Alabama wins in a blowout. It's like, oh, the old guard still blah, 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 blah. But that's not really what's happened. Like, if Alabama, let's say Alabama blew out Indiana in this game, it would be a massive shock to anybody actually paying attention to the sport. That would be a massive shock.
Yeah.
But that's not what would they talk about on PTI.
By the way, more importantly, Andy, if that were to happen, it would not be in support of the old ways.
No,
Alabama's
it was certainly not.
Kalen DeBoer is not playing by the old rules. Like he's as much like Indiana as Indiana is.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of not playing by the old rules and the old ways and how you got to do things now, we need to talk about that as it relates to the Michigan search, because Kalen DeBoer probably off the table. I don't want to say Kalen DeBoer's off the table. Kenny Dillingham, the Arizona State coach, now off the table. What does Michigan do now? We'll talk about the Dillingham decision, what happened after that, and what Michigan does when we come back. So the Kalen DeBoer thing settled, I think, with Michigan. It's not happening. He's going to be at Alabama.
He's busy.
Yeah, he's busy. So that, as we went down our pecking orders, our hot boards, the next guy on the list was Kenny Dillingham at Arizona State. So I actually talked to somebody on Saturday, got a little more information about this. So Kenny Dillingham, it comes out very early Saturday morning that he has agreed to terms with a new contract with Arizona State. We know Kenny Dillingham is an alum. He grew up in Scottsdale, which is 10 minutes from Tempe. His family's all there. His in-laws live in the same neighborhood as him. I think his parents live in the same neighborhood as him. So he's in a good spot. And so basically, I was told that Arizona State and Kenny Dillingham have actually been working on this deal for 2 months. And he decided basically like Wednesday of last week, middle of last week, that he was not leaving. But I think he probably had his agent keep the pressure on a little bit until he got it to where they wanted it. And that comes out. So Michigan now in need of another set of candidates. But what I thought was interesting is Kenny Dillingham then does an interview with the local media in Phoenix, where basically he says, "Hey, I'm looking for a $20 million donor to stroke a check. Who's got $20 million? Who can write a check right now and be the sugar daddy or sugar mama for this program?" And it's amazing to me because he just turned down the chance to never have to ask that.
Yeah.
To be in a place where he wants to be, and he has to ask that.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting, huh?
Wasn't it? And he dropped the name of two professional golfers who have a connection, certainly deep connection to Phoenix and Arizona State, and Phil Mickelson and John Rahm, I believe, pointing out that, just maybe they could afford to cut a big check. It was, Kenny's never beating around the bush. He's just kind of out there with whatever, pretty blunt. And that was a blunt way to try to get people around Tempe to understand that to compete with the roster recruitment and retainment these days, you need some big donors to cut some big checks. So it was interesting. I don't think, Andy, the Michigan people ever had that much confidence in Kenny coming. Right. It just didn't seem like they were going to be surprised. He made it clear
he liked being there.
Yeah. And they
and Arizona State is a more prestigious academic institution, let's be honest.
You're just rubbing it in at this point.
So now it feels like
there's no waste management open in Ann Arbor, boys. Sorry.
Yeah, it could be a few days longer maybe than expected in the Michigan coaching search. They did this first round. This is how, as y'all know, how these searches go, right? You have a search firm, you have a list of candidates, you start going through them, whittling them down to 8 to 10, and you do Zooms or whatever with those candidates. That part has happened, and I think they zeroed in on the Kalen and Kenny. Okay, those two things didn't happen. So now you go back to your pool you interviewed, and the issue is I don't know that anybody in the pool that were interviewed in the first round is going to eventually be the Michigan coach. So then you do the old recalibration,
reset,
reset, and I don't know specifically if that's happening, but it's just at least my understanding is that this could be several more days, which tells me another round is coming of interviews and inquiries.
It's good for Biff. I'm not kidding.
Yes, it is. You're right.
Biff Poggi's the interim coach. Yeah. And he's got a groundswell where he has all the players on the current team, which nobody ever listens to them.
Yeah.
I'm not discounting them. I'm just saying that never happens. And
The scene in the Disney movie, it never happens in real life.
Yeah.
Okay, just trust. Yeah, just trust us.
Yeah, but he also has quite a few former players who wouldn't mind seeing it. My issue with that, and God, I would love to see a sleeveless Biff Poggi lead Michigan out of the tunnel.
For sure.
In September. That would be
They ain't
amazing.
letting that guy
In
wear
December.
no sleeves on a Michigan.
Yeah.
The University of Michigan's not letting that guy go sleeveless.
A
coaching
Michigan
game.
man will wear sleeves.
Yes.
But-
yeah.
But I don't think that's maybe the best long-term solution, because if you do that, you are probably putting an expiration date on his tenure, and you probably don't want to do that because that probably hurts you long-term. But it does feel like a reset. The OG, the originator of this podcast, Dan Wetzel, tweeted that out Saturday night, where he said that he wouldn't be shocked if it took quite a bit longer, because it does feel like they are, as Ross said, recalibrating the search. And I do wonder what that means, because we've been throwing names out. We've been throwing out Jed Fish, Eli Drinkwitz, Clark Lee. These were all names that were involved in the other coaching searches that just went on, that just wrapped. So the question is there somebody else? I have a tinfoil hat conspiracy theory, which I think would be hilarious. You ready?
Yeah.
Harbaugh. Harbaugh leaves the NFL and comes back.
Which Harbaugh?
Not Jim Harbaugh.
I knew it. There
John
it is.
Harbaugh.
I've heard this. Yeah, I've heard this one. Yeah.
Wow.
I've heard this
How
one.
about this? How about the former Utah coach?
I like this, because Kyle Whittingham,
He's not
I
done
did it on this show,
coaching,
right? I
clearly.
said retirement
you
should not have said it.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
you were the first that to really call this to attention, and then I had people in the source world echo this. But the idea of him riding off into the sunset was incorrect. He wants another job. It's pretty obvious his comments afterwards, where he really framed it around like, I don't want to be somewhere I'm not wanted. So, by the way, once again, just to go back to the scoreboard on head coach in waiting, never works. It never works. Don't do it. It never, ever works.
And that brings us to Will Muschamp getting hired back in Texas as defense.
What the hell? Yeah.
But the Whittingham thing, listen, Kyle Whittingham has really done nothing but kick ass since he succeeded Urban Meyer as Utah coach.
Yeah.
20 years of ass kicking. The problem not this year, they were good this year, but the previous two, bad quarterback injury luck, holding out hope that Cam Rising was going to suddenly be healthy at some point. And I think that derailed both seasons. But all of the other seasons, like other than maybe Utah moving up into the Pac-12, they were good. Good to dominant.
Mm-hmm.
If he wants to coach, and his workout streak suggests to me that his workout streak, by the way, is in the like 3,000s of days, I think.
Hashtag no days off.
Or maybe 6,000s. I don't know. He told me what it was, and I just, my mind couldn't wrap my mind around it.
I don't remember. It's like at least 5-7
I don't
years.
I don't trust any man who squats on Thanksgiving. I don't like that.
See, that's the person I trust the most, because their priorities are in order.
No, not on Thanksgiving.
Never skip leg day.
Trainers and strength and conditioning guys are like, I ain't doing, not on Thanksgiving. Anyway, Michigan's going to have to make a compromise here. Michigan is, Harbaugh, the other Harbaugh, the one who was there and had a bunch of dudes get arrested that worked for him, is kind of, I would say, incorrectly colors this modern era of college football at Michigan, where satisfying the demands of the Michigan brass, of the modern game, of the weird, fart huffing culture there of like, it's got to be a prestigious allure, he's got to be a statesman. There was a study that says if
you smell your own farts, you will live longer. So
well, guess what?
The Michigan men are going to live forever.
They're eternals. They're eternals. Yeah. Okay. Congratulations. Jim Harbaugh is a Highlander.
There can only be one.
Right now, there is not a candidate. I know we all have kind of heard the same things in different phone calls and stuff. There is no candidate that even comes close to satisfying all of the areas you have to check in Ann Arbor. It's very similar to Notre Dame. Not entirely similar, but it's very similar. And so
that profile of job, I think you're right.
Absolutely. I don't know who they
have some similar academic issues too, as far as like transfer portal and taking players in Notre Dame and Michigan.
I just don't know. And this is not, by the way, I guess pro Michigan for a second. no conspiracy theory here, guys. No way would Michigan put themselves in the situation they're in right now with the market being as dried up as it is because of the timing.
Yes,
this idea that they waited on more,
lays that to bed. Yes.
No way, man. They do not want to be in this situation right now. That is apparent.
Yeah, and this is a tough spot, and the fact that they are like a lot of really smart people are considering the 1 year Biff Poggi Band-Aid. Tells you how tough a spot it is. Because I think even Biff would say that's probably not the best long-term solution. So,
but to keep the roster together,
I think Biff would love the job long-term, but I don't know that he's the right guy. I mean, we saw him
to
at
keep
Charlotte.
the quarterback, Andy, and keep the roster together right now, it's probably the one thing that would do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, but you can't even really raid coordinators to make a splash hire there either. I mean, there's a couple guys I think you could pick off, but it's just this is really, really inopportune timing for Michigan.
Yep.
Yeah, and I honestly don't know that you want to keep this staff together either. I don't think this is that important to keep this staff together. So
this is the point in the conversation where we have to mention, like, I don't know what kind of terra firma we're looking at within the athletic department in Ann Arbor as well. That's all. I think I know other candidates have talked about this. Like, what am I stepping into here? It's a top whatever job. But right now, what is the condition of this thing?
Well, think about
like
what
Ward
Kenny
Manuel is
just
heavily
did.
involved in.
Yeah,
it sounds like Ward Manuel is heavily involved in making the hire.
Yeah,
but
it does.
That doesn't mean that he's the long-term AD because there's an investigation going on into his tenure.
And they'll have a new president probably by the end of January or earlier. They'll have a new president as well. So when you get a new president, just like when you get a new AD, the coach's future is always
I can feel the sleeves being cut off the shacket right now.
This is not a bit. I think right now it's a legitimate option. And I think it's been entertained and discussed.
Oh, this is going to get aggravated.
I can't wait for the 60-minute story on Biff Poggi.
I want to check
because Biff Poggi is legitimately one of the most fascinating people in the sport. So, man ran a hedge fund, created a high school powerhouse, then went and became Jim Harbaugh's fixer at Michigan. Like, how? I have many questions. And if he winds up in charge, I'm fascinated by that. So we will find out. But that is something we will be covering, paying attention to. I'm not sure, like you guys said, I'm not sure we can answer. We got a show on Tuesday. Obviously, Christmas Day is Thursday, so we won't have a show on Thursday. By the time we take for that break for Christmas, I don't know if we have a Michigan coach.
No, I don't think so.
My original pick of today is not going to work out.
No. Gentlemen, with that little bit of tension simmering in the air, I say we sign off for today. When we come back on Tuesday, we got to talk about these quarterfinal matchups, which are going to be a whole lot of fun. And then we got bowl games. We got more coach movement, coordinator movement. The portal is about to open. There might be some more bomb drop names headed to the portal. We'll talk about it all on Tuesday on the College Football Enquirer.